But first and foremost, we have an old colleague and friend. He's not that old, a little older than I am, I guess. And we've been keeping in touch, every couple of years, kind of keeping in touch. And then he dropped me a line last week or a week ago to say, hey, congratulations on your 900th episode. I watched it. I really enjoyed it, which, you can tell there's something wrong with him immediately if he says that. But, great, I hope you're doing well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what, let's get this man on the show. I've known him now 30 plus years. So I'm going to bring him on the show. His name is ELLIOT GLUSKIN. He's a market researcher, and I guess since I've known him, he's gone on to be what they call a business strategist in terms of marketing and how to position your business in terms of, making a go of it. So we're bringing him into the neighborhood live on, excuse me, this Saturday morning, July 8th, 2023. ELLIOT GLUSKIN takes a moment for the thing to come on, but we're welcoming him to the neighborhood. When would it have been? It would have been early 90s when I first knew him. Maybe late 80s at first. So it's been, wow, 2021. Yeah. ELLIOT, where'd you go? ELLIOT, come on down. I'm Dave Lefkowitz, by the way, and you're watching Dave's Gone By. For more information about the program, go to davesgoneby.com. DAVESGONEBY. davesgoneby.com. Remember, you can literally listen to and watch, listen to, because the first bunch of years were on radio only. All our old episodes are right there on the site for free. You can stream them, you can download them, and then the last couple of years, of course, have been video. Keep trying to log back on. You were there, ELLIOT. Here we go. davesgoneby.com. Also, we have our archives at archive.org. Archive.org. And for the audio archives, castbox.fm if you're into podcasting. So, ELLIOT, welcome to last. Oh, good. You're unmuted. How are you, ELLIOT Glusk?
I am doing just fine. Thank you, David.
Yay! Now, where are you? Where do you live? Are you in Westchester or Long Island, or where are you at?
I am just outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh my God, we're almost neighbors. I'm in Maryland now.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny that, and I think I mentioned it in one of our communications, two of my kids actually looked at Towson to go to school there.
And they said, no. Why
Well, they ended up going other places, but no, so I'm not very, but I am aware of the school. I may know how to get there without getting lost too much.
I can't. I'm still learning how to drive around these parts. So,
Well,
how are you?
I think you've gotten used to driving up and down mountains. That's the problem.
Oh, because of my years in Colorado. But let me ask you: you're living down in Allentown? Are they closing all the factories down, or what's in Allentown, Pennsylvania? The past 10.
Allentown, Pennsylvania. Since you're a Long Island kid,
Mm-hmm.
Allentown, Pennsylvania. When I moved here in '93.
Yeah.
Reminded me of Long Island growing up. A lot of farmland, a lot of development of housing and commercial properties. Wonderful, wonderful place to raise a family.
Oh, good. I mean, it looks you're in a basement there.
I am in my
Does your wife have
basement
you sleeping
because
downstairs?
that way I'm out of my wife's hair.
Oh my God, I got it. Yeah, I was wondering.
Because she always hated listening to my teleconferences. So I always go down into the basement and she lets me stay here as long as I want.
That's a marriage. That's a good marriage right there. Let me tell you something. You have 2 kids?
5.
You have 5 children?
Well, I have 3 biologically, and we adopted 1, and we're now fostering another.
Well, Mazel tov. So I have to ask, why do you love children so much?
When we first got married, my wife said at some point in our life, if we're able to, she wanted to foster children. So the first 3 are ours.
Yeah.
The 4th one is actually one of my youngest son's best friends. who went through some really tough times, and my wife stood up and said, "Okay, he's coming to live with us."
Wow.
And that was 16 years ago when he was 15.
Oh, so he's a grown-up adult.
He's grown. All my kids are grown,
Yeah.
but the fifth one was actually one of my wife's students,
Oh,
and at high school, also going through a very rough time. And I remember getting the email from her. The subject was large question,
large question. Yeah.
large question. I opened it up and she told me, and I didn't hesitate. I said, "This is what you always wanted to do. Do it. Let's do it." So he's been with
Are all
us.
the kids there? You said they're all grown. Are they all out of the house at this point, or?
They're all out of the house. My oldest is going to turn 33. He's married, living in California.
Hmm,
Um, my other two, my youngest son and his brother, both live in Philly.
right. Yeah.
Both have wonderful girls that they're going with. And my youngest daughter, she's 24. She's going down the accounting world. So currently lives in Virginia. She's a senior auditor for her firm. And so yeah, knock on wood. Everyone
As you
is
say, well, the Jewish
everyone
people would say
doing
knock
very
on.
well, and
Yeah.
they still call me. That's more impressive than anything else.
And they tell you, please make the check out now. But
Yeah, sometimes. Well, no, David, there is no more checks. Everything is now Venmo.
oh, of course, or Zelle. We do a Zelle kind of a thing.
Yeah, I stay with Venmo because the kids are on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So let me ask you, Elliot. Let's roll back in time to when the years when we first met. You were at McCall's Working Woman before I was, right? You were there as a what they call a market researcher. Yeah.
I was a senior analyst.
So
Um,
could you explain what to people who aren't in that wonderful field, what the hell you did, and
what
talk.
did I do? I sifted through mountains of data to find the story that I could give to a salesperson, and he or she can then try and sell some advertising. So it was total advertising support. And it was a lot of fun because back then, McCall, now, David, let me correct the timeline a little bit. I was there from 1984 to 1988. So you came in 87, I think.
Wow, 1 year after college? I doubt because I was working at a bank for a
You
year.
worked at a bank, and
Might
then
have been 88. Yeah,
suddenly you appeared at a desk outside my office.
yeah.
I guess sort of like an admin kind of thing,
Right. I was secretary. I was yeah.
or secretary. And yeah, honestly, you and I just hit it off right from the quick because we had the same background, so the same sense of humor, um, which I think to the detriment of my wife, I've kept my sense of humor.
Mine too, believe me. Yeah, so we did hit it. I remember because it wasn't a bad job. I mean, I as a secretary thing there, I had two bosses who were very, very nice. One was easier than the other. The other was much
Well,
more
that's all.
productive.
That's always the case. You always have one that's
Yeah.
slightly easier than the other. Uh,
But they were both nice. They were both good people.
I'll tell you, now I've been doing this for 40 years. Yeah, I know. And
If I'd been doing it for 40 years, I'd be retired now. I should have
yeah,
stayed for
exactly.
40 years. Yeah.
But I would be in the entire time, I think I can count on half of one hand the number of people that really got me.
Half of one hand. So, without naming names, who is like half the middle finger? Was it at Playboy? Was it at McCall's? I doubt it was at
No, no, no. McCall's was great. Primarily, it was Playboy.
what. That was a pretty. I mean, I didn't have a terrible experience working there, but it was pretty fucked up. So, what was your terrible experience at Playboy?
Um, it, it was very, very cliquish.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you weren't in with the clique, then you were sort of, I don't want to say cast aside, but anything that you needed to um, present or in terms of ideas or what to do, they sort of would listen in one ear and it would go out the other, and then they would just keep doing
Okay.
whatever it was that they want or what they wanted to do. It was, but it was within my department that now you were
Well, I
one of
was within your department.
you were one of five in my department.
Yeah.
So on the day-to-day stuff, everyone was great. Everyone was working. It was really the upper levels,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
always the upper levels that you know, you're just a kid. You don't know anything.
Mm.
But one thing I learned is I knew a lot more than they did, simply because I knew how to, without really wanting to, I knew how to play the game. The one thing I learned is I'm a terrible office politician.
Mm.
I ignore it. I don't like it. I won't play that game. But one of the things is that you learn who is the ultimate politician, and you just sort of make your way around. But everyone else is fine. So, like I said, maybe there were really only two or three people throughout all the years.
Now you were because you were only how long were you at play? Because I think I was there about a year and a half before there was this turnover thing, and I was fired with like one or two other people, or three, four other people, I think. You weren't part of that. You stayed after I left, right, for a bit.
Yeah, well, from now, um, I'm just trying to picture the timeline. Yeah, at McCall's, what was happening back then is that McCall's brought in the Boston Consulting Group, and because to figure things out.
Yeah.
And what they figured out was that things had to change. I mean, you're talking about McCall's, which had, over 100 years of history. Running into was then at that time a change in philosophy, a change in business, a change in thinking.
And this is still before the internet. This isn't like suddenly the digital whatever revolution.
David,
This is
while I was there, when I first joined in 1984, they were probably Time Inc. also had one, but they were one of two magazine companies that had their own mainframe,
hmm. Okay.
and they kept it in the computer room that had to be 52 degrees at all times, and that's where I did a lot of my work, is because you had to sit down at a writer and type in all the code and everything else, which I loved because I was, now I'm going back in way back in the dinosaur age. But in high school, I was taught how to do Fortran and COBOL programming.
Wow. Okay. I couldn't get past basic because I took the computer class and they told us what Fortran. No, they told us about these other pro, and it was like if you do this and this and this, it will print out a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and it was like one little like
Yeah, yeah.
and suddenly looked like Arnold Stang, and it was like, no, fuck this.
Well,
It's not my
Abraham
thing.
Lincoln was easy. You had to try and do George Washington.
Oh yeah. But and I but because but you took me because you decided to leave play to leave McCall's
Right,
because you got the offer from
right,
Playboy. So you
right.
went to a bigger
Yes,
position.
I went from the
Yeah.
50-plus-year-old woman to the 21-plus-year-old guy who is, I don't know if the word I'm going to use was relevant back then, but a much more cosmopolitan
Yeah.
audience.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, McCall's for a women's service book. It was old school. It was like Happy Homemaker 55 plus. And Playboy, even though it wasn't on the cusp of things like it was in the 50s and 60s, it was still, there's like,
It still had a lot of following. My perspective was a lot of following in the not the publishing world per se, but in the literature world.
Oh yeah, known for absolutely for George Plimpton and the writers that that's the only name that I can pull at the
Yeah,
moment. But I'm sure Vonnegut wrote for them. It was, yeah, they if you went away from the dirty pictures and the dirty cartoons, it was like, oh my God, they're paying really good money for really strong writers of fiction and essays and things like that. So for sure, it still had some clout back in the day.
looking back and moving forward and seeing how the industry has changed. Back when Playboy was Playboy, I always equated it to sort of like the Atlantic with fiction.
Sure, yeah, oh yeah. Or even almost the New Yorker, not quite the New Yorker, but up there, Vanity Fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Some,
All the high quality editorial in terms of who's doing the writing, the stories that they're telling.
I can't
Uh,
believe we're defending Playboy. It's also about tits. Let's be honest.
no,
I'm
yeah,
all for
yeah.
tits. I
Well,
love
it
tits,
is.
but yeah,
Well,
And we didn't get to see any, by the way, except in the magazine. It's not like we had Playboy models. This wasn't the Grotto. This wasn't L.A. This wasn't even Chicago. I never met Hef. Did you ever meet you, Hef? We met Christy all the time, but not.
never had. Hef was always in the L.A. Grotto with his smoking jacket on.
And his rapees, right?
Yeah, well, and
He calls them wives, but yeah.
but you know what? It was interesting because the business of running the magazine. I came to learn and appreciate this very important fact. Working at Playboy in terms of the pictures and the photos and the girls and all that, it's sort of like being a baker. As a baker, you're creating these beautiful cakes and pies, and and you're surrounding yourself with what you make. You sell it, you make it, you taste it.
Hmm.
Same kind of thing. After a while, a baker who's there for 30 years doesn't look at his products the same way.
Well, for sure.
When you start, it's like, oh look, I made this fantastic, beautiful cake. Now it's just another cake.
So are you looking at that through the eyes of like Christy Hefner or the publishers, or
Oh,
maybe that's a,
my office, my office, my office was across from the communications director's office, and that's where all of the interviews were.
uh-huh.
And you'd have all these scantily clad young women going in.
I missed that.
But
I
the
missed
interview,
all
well,
that.
I was on the other side of the building.
Yeah, you son of a bitch. All right, yeah.
You were still in the research cave.
Right. Yeah. Because I thought all the scantily clad women were in Chicago or in LA. I didn't know they even made it to New York. But okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so it was very interesting. All of my friends loved the fact that I worked there because in the magazine world you get a complimentary list. I put everyone I knew on the list. So for years, even after I left, they were getting copies of
Free,
Playboy.
yeah, yeah. I got free copies for like years after they fucking fired me. I'm still getting. I don't want this anymore. I don't even. Oh, I think my dad subscribed for many years, even
Yeah.
after I was let go. So, but it's like, so when did you? I left Playboy after a year and a half when
Uh-huh.
they went in another direction or whatever the fuck they told me. Um, how long did you stay before you went to I think Rodale right after?
Um, from Playboy, I went back to the women's service field. I went to Ladies Home Journal.
Oh my gosh! Now, Did you leave play, or did they fire you? Like, or it's not my. I mean,
Yeah, they,
I was fired. I'm saying it right here.
well, yes, they fired me, but they did it in a nice way. They said, Elliot, your services are no longer required.
Oh, that is so nice. Oh, that is so charming, and that's what they told me too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing now, you went through an exit interview?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Everybody does. Yeah, yeah.
everyone does. I don't believe in varnishing anything. I told her exactly what was wrong with the company.
Okay. I was in shell shock because we sort of knew things were changing, but I didn't really see it coming. I mean, I knew I was going into, so I didn't necessarily think, oh, this. So while I'm sitting there, I'm just like, again, I just remember telling the woman who had to fire me, this older woman, and I told her, just watch your ass on the way out because the door will hit you in a couple of months,
Yeah,
maybe
oh
not
yeah,
tomorrow,
oh yeah.
but the same door's going to hit you in the ass too. And that
Right.
was and as scheming with rage as I was, I didn't actually lose my shit. I think it was the next day when I went. But you know what? I want to talk on a happy note before we get to more of your career. The two things I remember best about working at Playboy, because I didn't, the job was there. I didn't mind the Bernoulli boxes and all that shit. It was fine. I
Uh,
kept doing it. Um, and I didn't like even the fact that of all the things that I had to report on and find news about was cosmetics and perfumes and men's colognes and shit. I was like, the last. I hate that shit. I don't like it in real life, and now I've got to write all these little reports about what's new in the industry. But what I enjoyed at Playboy was lunchtime when you, me, and one or two of the other guys would play backgammon.
that's right. That's
Remember
right.
that?
You know what? I'm glad you remembered that. I forgot. Yeah,
Yeah,
we used to
that was
play
my
that.
favorite part of the day. We sit there, have a little bit of lunch, and then for like 40 minutes, we just get together and we play backgammon games. And once a week, God, this is going to sound so old school, but this really nice African American guy would come and give people shoe shines in the office. We had to tip him, but we
Uh-huh.
had a shoe shine guy because we all had to wear shoes. We were actually, I didn't wear, do we? I don't
Well,
think.
that followed me from McCall
Mm,
because at McCall's there was an old African American guy. His name was Steve,
okay, I don't remember. Yeah.
and he had many clients in the entire building. And he would always come and go down the hall, and he essentially had carte blanche. I mean, he did everyone's shoes. From Ray Eyes was probably one of the nicest, absolute lovely guys, well, man, I've ever worked with and known.
That's the first time I've heard that name in 20 years.
As I'm rambling on,
Yeah.
reminds me of the golf story.
Tell the golf story now because we have like
Okay,
5
all
minutes
right.
before it gets.
We were
Yeah.
at a sales meeting,
Yeah.
and McCall sales meeting, and we always had the golf tournament. And I don't know who they is to this day. I still don't know who they are, but they had me tee off with Ray Eyes. Now I did have the benefit of being the coach of the company softball team.
All right.
So I always seem to have carte blanche to go into his office and talk to him about the team, anything that we would need, that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we're on the golf course, and before we tee off, one of the guys comes to me and says, "Look, let Ray win.
What?
Let Ray win.
Let
Wait, say
Ray
so,
win."
yeah.
And I said, "Okay." Like, what am I going to? No, I'm not going to let him win. With golf, you can't promise anything because you don't know what's going to happen on the
Well, on
course.
the 18th hole, if you're up by two, you're down by two strokes, you can kind of like, oops, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So we play and we're having a great time, and of course we're talking about softball. He's asking me what I think of the company and that kind of stuff. And I end up beating him by 3 shots.
wow.
Mm-mm.
And he had told me beforehand that he always bets $1
Oh,
on the round. I said, okay. So now he a very wise man. He knew that no one wanted him to lose.
Mm.
So he told me 2 things. He said, "Thank you for playing for real."
Mm.
And he said, "Anytime you need anything for the team, let me know." So I was always able to go right through his secretary.
Wow.
Yeah, go, hey, I got to talk to Ray about the game. Okay, go.
That's cool. That's all right.
But the thing, back to the golf reel to close it all off, in front of everyone, at the dinner after or the lunch, whatever it was,
Yeah, yeah.
he calls me up. He calls me up to the thing, up to the podium kind of thing. Pulls $1 out of his wallet, hands it to me, and says, "You won fair and square."
Mm.
Nice. Nice.
Ray is like,
And then you were fired. Yeah, right.
Ray is like in my
Is
Mount
he-
Rushmore of people that I've worked with. He's definitely up there.
And I'm second. I'm kind of like the Thomas Jefferson, slightly.
Not the version of you.
On cruise.
The version I'm going to mention is right up there. Moisha Claus.
Moisha Claus. Oh, I remember that. Tell them about Moisha Claus. That was something.
Oh no.
I knew you. I knew you were top notch right away. I don't know which Christmas time it was, but you were coming. I think you were about 10 or 15 minutes late from work because
Yeah.
you were still gathering your stuff. And Frank Zilla, remember Frank?
I remember Frank. He wasn't bad, but yeah, I remember him.
No,
Yeah.
he was good. He was coming by. He was coming down, in the morning like he always does, walk down the aisles and see who's doing what. And he said, "Where's David?" And I said, "I don't know. He's usually here by now." No more than 30 seconds or a minute after I say that, Moisha Claus
Oh no.
comes
Oh.
walking down the aisle, Christmas bag in hand,
Oh.
Christmas hat on his head,
Yeah.
What were the presents? What were the
speaking in
presents?
such a beautiful Yiddish voice. Ho, 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 Moisha Claus.
This was around Christmas, I should say. This
Oh,
was
this is
right
St.
around that.
Patrick's Day, St. Patrick's
Yeah.
Day.
And it was great because you would hand out books.
Oh,
Books, paperback books, whatever books.
Huh.
wow.
I don't remember that. Yeah.
And every book, to my perspective, every book was sort of suited to the person that you were giving the book to.
Oh, that's clever.
Wish a Claus knew.
But
I knew.
the one thing and the reason I bring this up is because the look on Frank's face when this little kid from Long Island, Jewish kid from Long Island, comes walking down the hall dressed up as Santa Claus, speaking in a really good Jewish accent.
See, those were the times that made me, get through a job that I was not thrilled with. Is people like you and be able to do stuff like that. Do you remember the other thing I did was a Halloween
Oh God.
when I came in with candy for everybody. But
Yes,
I warned
yes.
everyone.
Oh, was tampered?
I said that, I've heard it's possible, we got to be careful that some of these, there's all these tamperings going on. It was actually an urban myth. But, so, and I would literally hand people, and there'd be like a little baby Ruth with a safety pin in it. Like an apple with a razor blade, very obviously positioned. And nobody would eat anything. So Elliot, very, very quickly, because I need to bring in the guests to play the game with you. You're
Okay.
staying around for the trivia game.
Uh-huh.
But so you went to Rodale, and what are you doing now? You have your own firm, right? You're still.
I had my own
What do you
firm
do?
from 2004 to 2020.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We closed the firm because of the pandemic, but
What did it do? What did it do?
the consulting business was actually fascinating. What I was able to do was transition from being a research guy to being a marketing consultant because through the years, my responsibilities included strategic planning. Rodale was always into strategic planning. It's a 5-year plan, but we do it every year.
Oh, no, that's smart actually, because some people do the 5-year plan. By the 4th year, it's like, what the hell? Let's get through this, as opposed to taking stock every year.
Every year, so
Really?
they put me in charge of that,
Yeah.
for my properties, and I would just, so I would make connections with industry people, with the bicycling industry.
Huh.
So I would talk to CEOs, I would talk to association presidents, I would talk to bike shop owners, whoever. And I cultivated a relationship based on two things.
Mm.
And sometimes I find in the greater world that these two things tend not to be put in the proper place. Number one is you're always looking for a win-win
Mm.
scenario.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mutual benefit.
Win-win scenario means that the client gets just as much, maybe this much more than we do, but we both win.
I like that. Okay.
Number two is it's okay to say no. I can't tell you how many people, someone says, oh, let's do this. And everyone says, yes, 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 yes. I'd be the one that says no. And they say, why? Because of course everyone says, it's a terrible thing. He said no.
Wish it caused
Yeah, and don't let your wife know that. It's like, how can we have sex?
No. It's funny. Through the years, it's been a very sharp delineation between work and home.
Well, you need to do marketing research of your wife and kids. Oh, so anyway, Elliot.
So simply here, let me just finish, David, let me just finish
sorry,
this up
yeah.
real quick.
Please, yeah.
The idea behind saying no helped me get the biggest client we ever had as a consultant. They called me in and, for something, they wanted me to attend a meeting. They called me on a Friday. They said, hey, Elliot, we're gonna have a meeting Monday morning. Can you attend? And I said, yes. Tell me what time to call in. And then they said, no, we want you here. The client was in California.
Huh.
So, and eventually I said, why did you want me to come in? And they said, because you're the only one who's actually told us what we can't do, not what we can do.
See, they should have called me because I'm always the negative one. I'm always saying, can't do no, stupid idea. It seems good, but it's not going to work. It's too expensive. It's whatever. But what we can do, and I am saying yes to this. Yes, we are going to be playing the Today, Yesterday trivia game with my wonderful old friend and guest, ELLIOT GLUSKIN.